We'll stand for the pledge of allegiance, please. Bob?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. Attendance, everyone's there. That's Bob, Cindy,
Yep. Happy here.
Ed, and myself. I need to amend the agenda to add Village Pavilion Building on after new business, after trustee appointment, if I could. That's it, public comment. Libby.
Since I've been following Onekama Township Board activities in 2021, there have been 5 appointments to fill 5 vacancies. Ed Bradford was appointed as treasurer to replace Levon Beebe. Amber Settlemeyer was appointed as clerk to replace Shelley Johnson. Cindy Wang Butcher was appointed as trustee to replace Al Taylor. And Bob Blackmore was appointed to replace Amber as clerk. Today, you are going to make the 6th appointment in 3.5 years. As required by law, you have to appoint a 6-week replacement for Bob's trustee position. Since the board has not followed the same procedure to fill these vacancies, I'm unclear on how you will appoint Bob's replacement. I would urge you not to select someone who is on the ballot. It would not be fair to give one candidate on the ballot a nod before the voters have an opportunity to make their decision in November. I would recommend that you appoint Al Taylor. I believe he's an ideal candidate to finish the remaining weeks of Bob's term. He has the background knowledge, experience, and expertise. He's not running in the November election. He's a respected citizen, and most importantly, he has demonstrated his commitment to serving the people of Onekama, not only as a former trustee, but through his many community activities. I also continue to recommend that the board establish policies and procedures for filling vacancies, signing contracts, managing website data, and other township businesses. Having policies and procedures is good for board members, committee members, volunteers, citizens, and the future of our two-lake town. Policies and procedures demonstrate transparency, accountability, consistency, and communication, all key components of good representative government. Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment? No? Okay, thank you. Oh, is anyone on the owl?
There's 3 people on.
Anybody have public comment that's online? No. I think that is a no. New business, Portage Lake Covenant Bible Camp Road Vacation Request. So we have the newest edition, the newest and greatest edition. The only question I have is we had talked about historic use mark and all that, and I was hoping they'd put something in this, but they're not going to mention it in here.
Don't know. That was up to Tom. We had talked about it.
I know, I saw what you said, and actually that would be fine with, to me, it was fine to say that, it made sense.
Yeah,
But I don't see that it's included in the,
Are you talking about the ice fishing?
you know,
Well, I think in Tom's letter, what he referred to is that the resolution would stand as it is, and that we would make a motion subject to having some type of agreement or whatever that the 2 attorneys.
come up with. I agree with that. I just thought it was gonna be included in this, and I didn't realize that till this.
I don't know if it's because this.
Richard's out of town, that's probably why. That's
I'm not sure why.
maybe.
no, I
But that's-
don't know why. I don't know why.
Okay.
I think maybe this was a document that takes care of the
Vacation part,
but
yes.
then the usage would be essentially, we would allow access to the lake based on historic practices, which is just to describe that, we want to allow as many people as possible to use the lake from our, accessed by it from our property. But, in a way that we kind of, we choose how it works based on who's at camp. So we say, yes, you can come this time, you can park here, you can go on here, this side of the property, that side of the property, or whatever it is.
Sure.
Or tomorrow by noon, or whatever.
So what does the board want to do? And everybody looked at this? I'm assuming they'll have read it again. Do you make a motion? This is just, I put this out there contingent upon that or just,
Well, I can make a motion if you want to have a motion to discuss.
yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So I would move to approve the current attached resolution that we just received. Exhibit A, contingent upon formal resolution or other declaration by the camp's applicable governing body, quote, authorizing winter public access to the camp property for ice fishing and ice shanty use consistent with the past such public use by specific language as necessary, approved by the attorneys for the township and for the camp, and that the township board shall thereafter adopt an appropriate corresponding amendment to the 2024-001 ordinance.
I'll second that.
Okay. Discussion, so I think that'd be fine with me, just so we mention it and we can work it out, because I think that we're on the same page of what it was, yeah, it's historic use, so we're not looking for.
Excellent. So let me ask this question. Based on your question last time, Cindy, obviously this, for us, there's a bit of a time thing here. When you say it's contingent on a discussion, does that mean that this has to be held until that language gets taken care of? Or does that vote make this binding? And then we
have to follow through. To me, if we pass this, that is a binding thing you have to do, otherwise we would revoke this.
Got it.
That's
just
the way I would interpret that. Am I wrong there, Ed?
I don't think so.
No.
Okay, that's what I assume.
No, we're trying to do this so you can move forward
Yeah.
in your process and not tie it up, because I think the language is what they put forth was fine, and I know your attorney's out overseas.
Yeah.
So that was another issue, so.
Yeah.
Everybody here okay with that anymore?
Fine.
Okay, so I think you have to do roll call vote on this, probably. Cindy,
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
David, yes, and it's gonna be resolution number
24-13.
2024.
24-13.
Oh,
Oh, you don't do the 20.
24-13, okay.
Okay.
Well, it took a while to get to this point, so it's fine.
Well, let me just say thank you very, very much for due diligence, for process. I appreciate it very much. Question, I don't know if Tom, this was also in the email. He and Richard and Jody and Katie got together and talked about, and I know it was Tom's recommendation that we also, it was his recommendation that we also go before I guess it was the ZBA, to
I think that's what it
apply for a variance to the
Based on-
process of our getting a land use permit, while we vacate the rest of the plat. It's been drawn up. We just obviously have to now file suit and do all.
Right, you gotta do all, so
Wait for people to.
we
respond.
talked about it, but it didn't come before this board, because this board isn't the one that'll,
Okay,
well, I obviously
Yeah.
gonna go to the ZBA, so no, that's fine. That's why I didn't bring it up today, because it's a different group.
yeah, okay,
But,
okay.
yeah, I saw that.
Talk with Jody and,
Mr. Wallace?
yeah, and Dave but that was the recommendation from Tom
Okay,
that we
correct.
go about doing that, so.
Cause this might take, I don't know,
A long time.
3 years,
No
probably.
idea. It might
Yeah.
take 3 months, it might take 3 years.
Oh,
I'm just
Good luck
going
to
with
you.
what people tell me. I don't know.
that's who you know.
Apparently, that's, just talked
Well, I
about this.
think Tommy
Just
alluded in his letter to it taking a couple of years. whether
We
he's
had
just-
one that went on for, not that that will happen here, we had one that went on up in Pierport, Bob, for how long?
Don't answer it, don't answer.
4 years? Okay. It was like 4 years, believe it or not, for some road. But anyways, this will be easier because you're doing more of the whole thing. So it is different.
Well, and we're adding our neighbors to it as well, and so that would be a relief to them as well. So
Okay.
they can build a fence or a garage or whatever.
Okay,
Thank you very much, I appreciate that.
thank you.
Yeah.
Very much. Next is employment for the film trustee spot. So we figured this out last month. We have how many days left between what the election would be
I think it was 51.
and when we had to appoint somebody?
I don't remember.
You had to appoint within 45 days, right, Bob? 45 days.
Right, and I actually read the statute again to see what happens if we don't, which we don't want to go down that. road.
No, we don't want to
We
go
don't
down
want to go
there.
down that road, but that, yeah, I think there's like a 6-day gap.
Between the two, right?
Right, there's no way that we can go
So-
right to the election.
Okay, so you can do this 2 ways then. Based on what Libby said, you could defer this and have a special meeting 8 days before the election and then appoint somebody, because you have to have somebody in at that time frame, and they wouldn't have much of a impact on election at that time, because all the absentee ballots will probably already, most of them will be voted on and in, and you'd have somebody be appointed for 7 days, basically. See, or you can appoint somebody today. She mentioned Al's name. I don't know whether Al would even be up for doing that. I mean, he did resign because he was having trouble. I mean, that is why he did step out, so.
So interestingly, we have similar thoughts on this. If, I'll say it again, I don't feel that we have a need where we're compelled that we need to appoint somebody today. I believe if we wanted, we could wait till our next meeting, or like you said, wait full 45 days and then do it. Regardless of when we do it, I would want to appoint somebody that's not on the ballot. One, in all fairness to all 3 candidates, and I personally would not vote for anybody that is running, because I just don't think it's fair to the others. So I had thought about previous Al. I had thought about even a citizen that comes often if they're willing to, because, I mean, it would be more making the legal requirement. Or an employee we could appoint, and the only reason there was the fact we already have all the financial information and all that would be needed for any kind of compensation. But I would not vote in favor of any motion that would name a specific candidate.
Bob, Ed, Bob,
That's my thinking.
Ed, you okay with it? Okay, so we just won't make an appointment. We'll deal with this and put it on the agenda for next month's meeting. And see what time frame you want to deal with. Also, then I'd be more inclined to just wait till the last possible day before the election and have a special meeting. And appoint that whoever it is for that time frame, because then they won't go to a meeting. They won't do anything.
Well, you could appoint them effective as of a date at the next regular meeting, so we don't have to hold a special meeting.
Oh, yeah, okay,
That's a good point.
that's a good point, okay.
Probably.
And then that would allow us time if, we
That's-
felt like we wanted to contact Al or whatever, just to. make
Yeah,
sure.
because I haven't talked to Al and asked him that question even to pose it to him, and that I would be,
didn't talk to anybody because I didn't know.
well,
I
neither
thought
have I.
there were a couple ways we could go.
But I mean, just to point out today and not talk to him ahead of time.
No, I-
I wouldn't do that.
No, I agree.
Okay,
I agree. I wouldn't do that with anybody.
okay, moving on, then we'll just put on next month's agenda, not worry about today. The village, I'll defer to Joe for a minute and fill me in about, they need the money for the pavilion by what date? brought it up to me last, so it's on, I amended the agenda because they need the money given to the village. I think they've already ordered the thing or it's shipped or something.
We ordered the structure and made the 25% down payment to the manufacturer of Cedar Forest products. What they need to do is close up the contract with Matthew Builders so that they can demolish that and pour concrete hopefully next month and into November. The contract with Matthew has a $10,000 down payment on a $50,000 contract. Just the 10 grand is to cover what they're gonna do this fall. The trouble is the foundation fund that we raise money for only has 6,000 left in it. They haven't triggered the $100,000 grant yet because there were two steps that had to be met to do that. One was the village had to transfer 10,000 from their general fund for their commitment for the new pavilion. They've done that. The other one was we need the township to write a check to the village for 15,000, your commitment. And then that triggers the $100,000 grant. The village can get the money to make the down payment with Matthew and we keep the ball rolling.
And that was contingent upon them giving a deal to village resident or township residents. So what they have here is their park reservation form, which they changed. And now the deposit to hold is for $50 for village and township residents. Same figure. And if you're not, it's $75. So it's a $25 bonus given to be a township resident and village resident in the rental of that to hold it. Which gave us the avenue to give them the money to begin with.
What does it charge, what do they charge to rent it? Is that just the?
$50.
So that is the rental fee?
Yeah.
And as far as time frame, Dave, we're trying to make it happen now because it's like a week and a half, 2-week process. Once you get a check to the village's got to notify the foundation has a board that has to approve it. So it takes a while.
Wait a minute, so what I'm hearing is the grant's not been approved?
No, the
Been
grant,
approved contingent upon us doing this match.
those were the matching funds, 10
No,
from
the
the
way you
village.
said it though, I thought you, okay.
Oh, no, it's already approved. She just won't release the money until she sees the match part of it, that's all.
I
So,
interpreted
We don't
what
need
you
a
said
motion
differently.
that we do.
When someone
I'll make
make
a motion, we go ahead and do our due diligence with the village.
15,000
15,000
for the pavilion fund.
construction of the new pavilion in Village Park.
Okay. Is there a second?
Did you mean to release the funds out? Is that
Yeah.
in there somewhere?
Wow,
Al,
that's not Al.
I'll support that.
To release the funds to write a check. Actually, motion should say, please to write a check to the village to the tune of $15,000 for the pavilion project. Okay?
That sounds pretty good.
Thank you.
Sounds better than what I made.
Yeah, kind of.
Shorter too.
Second by Ed. Thanks, Al. All those in favor, how about Cindy?
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Ed,
Yes.
and David, yes. Okay, there you go. Public comment. None? Okay. We're going to adjourn the regular special meeting at 4:21 PM. And I guess we'll call to order the work session. Unless you need a break. Okay. I'm just asking. Someone needs a break. Thank you. See you, Martin. Okay, so what do you got for us? I know you,
Ken, I'm gonna go get a thing of water.
okay, that's fine.
James, you're the last bits.
Oh, those are short.
You gotta print this whole pamphlet in the paper, right? Resolution with all this.
And you know what, since the clerk's always, I have no idea, I can't answer that, Bob, does that whole resolution have to go in the paper? Or do you know?
Street vacation.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either, we'll have to ask, I'll ask Shelley, actually Shelley will know, she had to deal with that.
Or call
I'm thinking.
I could, I'm probably
I
right,
think I've seen resolutions before.
in the paper, I don't get the paper, so it's, today I just happened to notice the one was in the paper, because I got the paper today. So other than that, we'll know it. So, staffing, duties, is some of the stuff that, like, as a trustee that Bob has done. And Al did. As trustees, is not anywhere in the job description for being a trustee, right?
It is not.
Okay,
It's by the rest of the board's decisions to,
and that was why the trustee's salary has gone up over the years, is to keep giving them more stuff to do, it's not just show. Hello?
No, I just my inbox updating.
Oh. So we keep giving duties to the trustees, and Bob kept doing it in the past, and that's why they've been compensated for that. So going forward, can we spell out that though? How do you spell that out with I don't statutory duties for, let's say, the trustee?
there is no, by law, there is no statutory duties. It's
Right.
all assigned by the board.
Well,
I mean, you're supposed to show up and vote at the meeting, but you know what? I don't think,
But anything beyond that is at the whim of the board. They need somebody to go to road commission meeting to be there. Poof, there you go. Gotta have a liquor inspector. Poof, there you go.
so for years, so what happened, going back even, you can go back 20 years, Nipper always went to the county commissioner meetings. We assigned him to go there, he went to all the road commission meetings, he went to, well, he was head of Michigan Township Association president, and he attended all those meetings. He went to a lot of different meetings to give reports back to the board. And then that was why the compensation had gone up, just to accommodate for some of that, so, but we've never spelled that out.
Well, the more active the board is, the more things there are to do. That's why you have the extra people. But it's grown so much in the last 10 years that it's almost out of control.
So Vic mentioned to me, so Bob is taking care of all the park stuff. So Vic is now chair of Parks and Rec, he's kind of,
Zoning and parks and invasive and
oh, I'm doing, well, okay.
no, you're doing a couple things, that's what I'm saying, everyone's doing more stuff, so the thing here is to talk about. Obviously, what you're gonna do, because you're gonna appoint the new trustees with things to do.
well, you've got plenty.
Oh, yeah, we got plenty to do. They might not be so happy to learn all that. I mean, that's why I think you need to talk about it ahead of time. They might not be so happy to hear about all that, like. I have to appoint somebody to go take care of the toilets at the park and go down there, and, just like,
Well, I mean, the statutory duties of the trustee are other duties as assigned by the board, but the trustee has to agree to it.
that's what I mean. You can't just say, you gotta
You
do this.
cannot not agree.
Sure you can,
Well, sure you
Well,
could.
absolutely you can.
Yeah,
And that's the whole point of this.
You could have disagreed as a trustee and say, I am not doing that, right?
kinda,
I
yeah.
mean, it's very common in bigger townships for the elected officials and the trustees to do basically their statutory duties and legislate, and they have staff doing the day-to-day stuff. I mean, that's not uncommon. So I think the point here was, and the reason for this is, it's come up a few times in the last 18 months, particularly with all of the new election law stuff that really has put a lot of extra stuff on the clerk. But I think what's happened here is over the years, this board has one, leaned on its members pretty heavily. And two, it's also, there's a lot of things that the clerk has been doing, I think, that are probably one, not statutory duties, and probably disproportionately responsibilities falling on that particular office. So it's no doubt that they're feeling kind of run ragged and maybe not able to keep up with stuff. So I had a long conversation with the attorney from MTA and she sent me a bunch of information. I sent some of that to you all. There's ways to mitigate that, and I think we need to do that, but the real question here, and there's an opportunity that we'll have to take advantage of if we decide to do this because of the way the law reads, but you can't adjust the salary of an elected official after they've already taken office. So if we wanted to reallocate duties and have the salaries of one or more of the officials only reflect the statutory duties, we have to readopt the salary resolution effective November 20th, 12 AM when the new person takes office. Because if you go beyond that,
You can't change it,
you can't change it.
no.
And what she also suggested and what is in the literature is that if there's other activities, job, not the statutory things, then you can pay the individual doing that either through salary or an hourly or per diem or however it might be, but you should spell that out in advance. And we haven't done that, but I think we're to the point where we might need to consider that. The other thing that really came out of that is the deputies that the treasurer and the clerk have to appoint and the supervisor may appoint. They are supposed to be able to step in and do the functions of the elected official if they can't do them. But beyond that, they're a township board employee. They're not my employee. They're not the clerk's employee. So the township board, if that person is agreeable to it, can take on other duties and responsibilities that the township board, provides them, assuming they're willing to do that. So it's kind of a weird dichotomy, but it just because the township authorizing act was written, 100 years ago or whatever, it's pretty archaic. So, at some point you get to the size where you might want to have an employee that's not necessarily beholden to anybody, but to the board that does some of these things. Like, I don't think a volunteer on a board and committee should be out there, procuring contracts and soliciting bids for the township. That's not right? And I don't think that you should, expect the clerk's office, as an example, to do functions that they don't have any skill set whatsoever to do and aren't getting done. And we have an obligation, even though that might be tangentially a statutory duty, this board has an obligation to make sure those things are getting done, whether the clerk's office is doing them or not. We can contract it out, we can assign it to somebody else. So, Cindy started by putting a list together of all of the kind of the duties and then additional duties, and I fleshed that out a little bit. I sent it to you guys. There's some things that I thought of after I sent it out that aren't on here, but I think we need to figure out collectively from a time sensitive situation, are we gonna adjust these salary resolutions for the next term? And then if so, to what degree? And then what are we gonna do about these other duties? We ought to probably write those up in some kind of a job description or modify ones that are out there to kind of address some of this stuff. And there's a lot of different ways to proceed on that, but I don't know.
So you're talking about jobbing out some of the stuff that hadn't been getting done now and have somebody do it. Do we, depending on where that ends up as to whether or not you lower the salary or not lower the salary, depending on how much you take away and how much you add, right?
Yeah, one of the elected officials could come in, just say somebody new gets elected to the board.
Okay,
Say, you know what, I'm gonna come to the meetings. And I'm gonna, do my statutory duties to legislate and vote on all issues. And make sure I monitor the fiduciary health, but I'm not doing anything else. And they still get the salary that's in that salary resolution.
okay.
So, the articles that I've reviewed on this say, you just need to be aware of that. And you need to make sure that, everybody knows that that's the case. And so if you set the salary at whatever, and somebody decides, I was doing this in the past, but I'm really not doing this anymore, sorry. You don't really have a recourse to be able to adjust that salary. If you set the salary at some other level, or maybe that is the right level, maybe the salary is the right level for the statutory duties, and now you've got additional stuff that needs to be done,
compensated
It
for
depends
that.
on how you look at that. But, we've had, we saw it happen recently here where things weren't getting done. And whether that was for not enough help or not being able to do it or whatever, I don't know. I've taken over some of the things that, you know, in theory should be clerk stuff because it had to get done, you know, whether that's interfacing with the CPA or the auditors or, you know, helping out with journal entries or whatever. And I'm okay with doing that. Some of that stuff we kind of need to work through a little bit because, so everybody understands how that's being done, but, you know, but it's the same thing, you know, who's gonna oversee the seasonal help, right? I mean, so, you know, one way to go, maybe you actually create a position that you wrap up some of these other things so that there's some continuity. And they have, you know, A, B, C, D, E, F, G responsibilities and can report to the board or the supervisor or whatever. There's a lot of different ways to go with this, but I just bring it up because
You know?
it's been an issue and we have an opportunity here to correct that if we want to. But we've got to do it.
Well, no, I think it needs to be, I'd love for the clerk to be the FOA director, because all I do is I get a freedom of information request and I just forward it to the clerk to look all the stuff up anyways. Not that no, I shouldn't say that. That doesn't happen all the time, but it depends where the FOA request is, what it's for. But that's where she's the keeper of the records, or I'm sorry, he's the keeper of the records. I just go right to him or Mandy and say, hey, could you look this, as an example, last week I had one, and I said, could you just look this up for me? And she got in there and spent, I don't know how much time, and found it and went through the computer and found it and gave it to me. It doesn't make sense for me to actually hold that job. I don't know why the clerk, you know, is one of the duties for the clerk and be reimbursed for it, I guess, would be to be the FOA director. That's the way it had always been. Except years ago, I was by statute, and I'm going back, I don't even know how many years ago that was, they changed the law, I think, but I was a long time ago. Ever since then, it has always been the clerk. Helen was it, and it's always been the clerk. Shelley was it. I mean, it makes more sense to me, it's just easier. I mean, but I'm not resigning from it, but I'll hold it till my term is up, but I just think that's a better idea.
Well, there's some things I think that make sense in certain areas, and what you said is exactly right. The clerk knows, or is the keeper of most of the records, so they're gonna get the burden of the FOIA request, whether they're the coordinator or not,
Right.
to a large degree.
What? Go ahead. I don't,
No, there's so much.
there's so much to this to try to figure
There's
out.
a lot to this, so, again, I don't know how the level of compensation has evolved through the years. So I can't respond to that, but, even prior to Ed sending what he did today, which I sat in my car and tried to read as much of it as I could before the meeting. I do think for us to have an expectation higher than statutory duties is probably inappropriate because you can't impose that on somebody. Now, again, under the trustees, statutory is, or as the board sees fit, which, as
Kind
you
of wide
said,
open.
somebody has to do it, but at least there's like a little bit of implication that somebody should be doing more than just those things. But relative to, and it primarily, I mean, if you look at the spreadsheet right now, it's primarily what the clerk's position was doing, right, wrong, or indifferent, that is over and above statutory, and what Bob was doing. Which then you could argue that you took it on and that was assigned. But before having another clerk take office, I think that has to be clear, not even just from a compensation level, but from an understanding of expectations and that, because the other interesting thing that I did not read in other stuff that I read prior to you sending this, it was interesting to read this where it said, clerk doesn't have to hold hours other than what's required during an election. And it's like, that puts an interesting twist on things also, I mean, neither does the treasurer. So, you know.
That's why we had broken up. I think we talked about that last time, 4 years ago, was breaking it up.
Does the local board supersede? Cause we voted to work 3 days a week,
We did that.
We did,
We did at office hours, so.
Yeah. but it's a resolution passed and agreed by the board. Is that in violation of?
No, but I don't think you can make the clerk or the treasurer do it, because it's not a statutory duty.
The only hours by law that I have to be in the office are, well, there's some things that are pointed out
Right.
around the collection period for taxes.
But other than
And
that,
the
that's,
clerks by law are all tied around the election.
Right.
yeah, the clerk doesn't have to be here by law except for that time frame. They don't have to be here Monday, Tuesday. We set the hours. We set the office hours, and that was part of the compensation thing that we did internally at the meeting. That goes back years ago.
If the clerk doesn't have to be here only like the treasurer, only 3 or 4 days a year.
That's correct, as long as they do their job.
But we say you gotta be here.
Well, that's the way it is. That's the law.
Well, and that's kind of been
Each
what else.
each position's independently elected. I mean, the board does not have authority over other people.
No, I know.
Board duties.
I'm just saying, they don't have to be here but 3, 4 days a year, the
They
clerk.
may not like it.
But you can set the compensation up to be, we want office hours 3 days a week from 9 to 2, and part of your compensation level is due to the fact that the office hours are open like that. You can do that.
I don't think so. I think what you can do is say, clerk position gets paid
X amount.
X amount.
If you have office hours, it gets paid X amount.
Then
Yeah, you
have-
can,
if you
actually.
won't- If you are here 12, 15 hours a week, here's a line item.
Right, you're paying them for that time. I mean, that's,
But I don't think you can make them, is what I'm saying.
Well,
no, you can't make them. I didn't mean to say you could make them. Oh, no.
I would just, if I could make just one more simple comment, is I think, there's compensation for the statutory duties. Even though it maybe gets complicated, all the other non-statutory duties should actually line item, separate job.
That's what I was trying to say when I said like holding hours
I
or
mean,
whatever.
at the end, it maybe kind of amounts to the same thing, but.
That sounds good,
Blend it.
actually.
I just don't see any other way to do it.
There isn't any way in the world that a clerk can handle right now 3 days a week.
Oh, no, I know that, in the
You
office.
say she only has to come in twice a year.
4 times.
No, I'm saying she has to have office hours. I didn't say about coming in. I
That's it,
said-
she only has to come in 4 days.
That's correct, but you still have to do your work. You still have to do your work. I don't care where you do
can't
it.
do her statutory duties in
But-
4 days a week.
Well, who said that?
Correct, but nobody said that he or she has to be here 9 to 2. on
Correct.
Wednesday, Friday.
That's always been, believe it or not, kind of, everyone's done that. We increased, and Helen was, that's how it started when Helen was here. Helen had office hours 3 days a week, and she was here most of the time till 3 o'clock.
And I mean, the unfortunate part of like a small township, especially as opposed to a city or something like that. I mean, you can have someone, whether it's sheriff, clerk, treasurer, whatever, run for office. Not have any qualifications in a business world for those. Get elected, and that's what you've got.
Exactly.
And they can also, show up half the time for meetings and not the other half, and they still get paid.
No, I mean,
Right.
that's just the nature of a township, or at least, you know, when you have a city or something, you would argue that you're hiring competent employees that have qualifications. That's not true in the township. So
That's true.
I just, and I think Dan said it better than what I was trying to say, but I mean, I think that's what we have to do is say, here we go, and then have a menu of,
Didn't she say you could do that, by the way?
or
Well,
the only
well-
other thing would be to hire a separate employee that you know,
Right.
stuff to.
Right.
That's another option. And a trustee can be employed, not.
No, and then you take duties, are you talking about duties for the clerk, or are you talking about duties that the trustees are doing? You hire somebody.
A trustee can be an employee to do any,
Correct.
as long as it's not a conflicting.
Right.
You know, it
Ask-
can't be a
ask
plan
can the
G,
clerk or the
it can't be
treasurer.
a-
That's what I'm saying.
So Catherine was very clear that, and I think in the literature, it was very clear that the salary resolution should only be for the statutory duties,
Correct.
period. And then anything else that you're gonna pay somebody for or not is spelled out in some kind of another document, another different resolution, whatever it might be.
So in that
Could
case,
you have a separate
clerk-
contract, just like you would with a,
Yeah, I mean, you could put it in the job description or whatever, because I mean, you're not gonna pay them as a contractor over here and as an employee here, you
Oh,
just
yeah.
add to
Yeah, yeah.
their salary or whatever, but.
in that case, then the clerk was the FOA and director. That's not a statutory duty. So she get paid extra, he would get paid extra for that position.
Or if you're gonna pay for that position, hell, I'll that not keep it.
See?
What is that, like $3,000 a month or something?
yeah,
Four?
that might
The
be.
lowest bidder.
So, they do a reverse auction,
Chinese
The,
auction, yeah, that'd be great. How
uh,
about I'm free? Eric, you know what? That's great. We'll stop for 1 second. I've been doing it for free. How much under that are you gonna pay us to do it?
Maybe you should pay the township for the privilege.
Absolutely pay the
Oh,
township for
yeah,
that,
absolutely.
because I'm the one that's making those FOIA
Yeah.
requests. And it's
So-
such
Just
a,
be living.
and it's such a privilege to be fulfilling my requests. I don't know what more compensation you could possibly need.
I don't either, so. But Dan's offered to do it for less than that, so that means he'd write a check.
I was making a suggestion for you.
But I think it was an
I was
offer.
Negotiating on your behalf.
I think it was an offer.
Actually, I think if you put it
Well,
out for
actually, I'll have
bids,
to
there'd
think
be
about
lots of people who wanna serve as my FOIA.
For free?
For free, absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, anyways,
so the one article that I sent out, which is relatively new, talked about the need or the trend that the clerk's office, especially with all the new election requirements, there's a need to shed some of those other duties that might have traditionally been done by the clerk's office and send them over to either another employee, another township official, whatever it might be. So I think we need to look at this kind of holistically. And I think we can evolve and as we go along, but the pressing decision is gonna be, are we gonna redo salary resolutions for the newly elected officials? And if so, that ties into, okay, then all this other list of things that need to get done, who's gonna do them and how much are they gonna get paid? And is it gonna be another person, or are we gonna expand, like, are we gonna have Mandy here 5 days a week doing stuff?
well, she's working 4 days now.
I mean, or whatever, you know, there's,
So the question I have, which I didn't want to input any information since I'm new to the MTA thing. But I noticed that it appears maybe through MTA, if you offer your compensations, you have access to,
Oh, people will respond.
no, but it seems like MTA has
they probably have
something.
a salary survey.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, survey,
and
yeah.
so I was wondering if that would be beneficial to us to get a handle on. What are other people doing and how are they doing it, especially in townships that we can find more as comparable to us as possible?
Similar size you have to deal with and population kind of. Hey, Louis, what do you want to say on this?
A lot of variances, you know, even
In between the townships.
between the township is the same size are basically. Do they have a lake? Are they aggressively going after all the grants and stuff for parks and rec and stuff?
There's a whole bunch of
There's a whole
variables.
bunch of them aren't doing nothing.
And most of, and so you know, so we have office hours. I'll give you an example, Bear Lake. None.
No, I know.
And Dixon is, I think one,
Those are the ones that aren't doing.
Norman has no office hours.
No, I understand. I mean,
And they're a big township
for
too.
me, as an elected official, if I had that position, I'd want to have office hours as a service, but that doesn't
Yeah, that's the problem.
mean somebody else does.
Oh, go ahead.
But that, I just noticed.
I need a clarification, if I could, Ed. You have to have by law, this new compensation before the election?
Yes.
You cannot change the compensation for an
After.
elected official after they've been elected.
So what happens when you if you vote yourself raises?
Salary resolution is different than changing. Here's the reason, that person is running for an office, you established a wage, and let's say it's $20,000.
You can't lower it.
You can't lower it before the elect, and all of a sudden, they go, well, I was getting the job for 20 and now you lowered it to 10 grand. That wasn't fair. That's
Okay,
what
You
it's.
can adjust it annually, but you can't lower it.
so that's,
Yeah.
okay, it's
Yeah.
the lower that I
Right.
missed. All right.
Yes.
if
Right,
that was
because you
the
can have,
operative
because I
word.
think the
I
reason.
get it now.
Yeah,
I did
yeah.
not understand.
But you understand.
Nobody mentioned anything
Oh,
about.
lower. Yeah,
lower.
you can't,
That
you
was
can't,
the
you
key.
can't position yourself for a job that's gonna pay 10 and then you
I
get 5. Yeah.
understand. I
Okay.
did not hear the word lower. That's why I was
So,
asking for.
You think we can do all this before November? We'd have
I
to,
don't know how you could.
I don't know how we
I
can.
can show you a list of the duties of the
But,
treasurer that are 2.5 pages long by with the MTA. The clerk is probably 6 pages long. All the duties that are relevant to that position.
we've jobbed out the quarterlies now, right, for payroll?
So the tax returns and the remittances to the state and feds, the CPA's doing.
Okay, so if we took, let's say that the clerk's job becomes whatever, could we take the payroll? Or would you not wanna do that away from the clerk?
Well, they're certainly capable of doing the payroll, but, you know, that piece, they're already doing a piece of the payroll. I don't know that you need to do that. I
Okay.
can tell you that in my 4 years here, the clerk's office has not, been as involved with the general ledger as I would have expected of a legal like that. So, I mean, we're paying the CPAs to come in annually to clean up the books. A lot of money. I mean, typically, if you had a bigger township and somebody that was qualified in accounting, you wouldn't have to do that.
Okay,
So we're kind of already outsourcing some of that stuff a little bit already. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't pay a CPA to come in and do that.
right,
You know, laser fees, the clerk is required to keep the record. She is, maintains custody of all township records. Well, that's the physical copy. Laser fiche is a different topic, and it's not being, utilized to its full extent, even though we're working with it. I think that could be so much more. Should that be a clerk's responsibility? Or is that more of a township board saying, okay, this is how the laser fiche is gonna be done, Madam Clerk Treasurer, whoever's putting information into it. We're gonna set up standards for that, and I wanna be able to access that data without having to dig around because it's some weird file structure. So there's all kinds of things like that. I just think it's, over the years, we've thrown more and more stuff on the clerk's department, and it's gotten to become unmanageable. I think personally.
You're absolutely.
And
right.
you had Helen Matthews, who was here for 30 years, who knew all the operations by, the back of her hand and was capable of doing, a lot of this. And as you have different people in these positions, they may or may not have the same skill sets, and I think that becomes problematic if you don't have a good way to address those areas that have to be addressed. I mean, there's townships where the clerk doesn't do anything with the accounting except for sign the checks. To say that, yeah, that's a legitimate claim on the township as was approved by the board. And, maybe review the financial statements, but all the day-to-day stuff is done by staff or a CPA or whoever, right? So, yes, it's their statutory duty to quote, maintain the general ledger, but it's the township board's responsibility to make sure that's being done, and if that needs to get farmed out, it needs to get farmed out. Same way with, there was that was an article, they can do it with the payables or whatever. So I don't know, there's things that, I think we need to lighten the load on the clerk. And have some of those duties either reallocated, delivered in a different way, or whatever, so they can focus on a lot of these new requirements. And we can make sure that all the things that they're supposed to be doing are being done timely and accurately, however that might look. And then all these other areas that aren't clerk related that seem to be kind of just like, yeah, well, I'll take care of it, I'll take it. We ought to have an understanding of how that's gonna look. One of the things that's on the clerk's list here is responsible for grant applications and administration. That's not a statutory duty of the clerk. I don't know how that ended up landing on the clerk. Is that the appropriate spot for it? Maybe, maybe not. I know it wasn't like the last natural resources trust fund grant we had, certainly the clerk's office wasn't managing. It was being managed by a trustee, and it lingered for years longer than it should have because it wasn't being actively managed. So how do you best address that? I think you take advantage of skill sets that different people have to a degree. and what they're comfortable with, and then you figure out, okay, I mean, I'm just throwing a hypothetical out here. I don't think we're ready for this yet, but if we had a township manager, let's say, just hypothetical. You could fold in a bunch of this stuff. We have one person that's responsible, it's consistent. We can lean on that person to make sure that things are done timely and are being monitored, and they can oversee people and all of that. And then I think there's a certain level of efficiency to be gained with something like that. Now, it doesn't have to be a township manager in the traditional sense of a word that, that's managing a 20,000 person township. No, because we're, 2,000 people or 16, whatever we are. But maybe you have some kind of an operations manager or a part-time, I don't even know what you call the position, but that might do some of this, or maybe you expand, Andy's hours if she wants more hours. I mean, or you add another person that does something, and we're kind of going down that path. We've got a parks person now, and we've got a parks maintenance person. And I think they're both doing a fine job, and we need that because parks are a showcase for us, but, there's a lot of other stuff that potentially, when Bob goes, we're gonna lose all that maintenance.
Yeah.
Who's gonna do that, right? Who's gonna oversee those contractors and let them in the building and, get a hold of the heating guy when, it's cold.
No, because it's gonna be difficult because the other day, as an example, I was out of town, I was just, whatever, they called for the toilets.
Okay.
And they couldn't find the key, and I don't know, where was I, Bob? Bear Lake, I was out, I called Bob, I said, are you anywhere, where are you? And he goes, I'm at the office, I said, would you do me a favor, run out to the point and look, because the truck was there. And couldn't figure out, yeah, to pump it. Couldn't figure out how to get to the thing, because it was in through the back part of the toilet, so he went right out there. And otherwise I'd have drove, I was way out by almost past Calva. And I would have just drove back if I would have had to, but he answered the phone and not begrudgingly, he just said, yeah, I'll go out there. So he went out there and unlocked it. So that's happened more than once, so I've called him quite a few times when someone's been at the hall and I was miles away, and then I said, Bob, would you mind meeting this person? I don't know what happens going forward now. So that'll all change.
Well,
I think it will be.
Running long before I got here.
It'll be running long after you're gone. Yeah, I get it.
well, separating the things Bob does. If you look at the spreadsheet, most of the additional duties are all what I would call administrative. To some level, I mean, they require maybe different, levels, other than the cemetery, maybe, I don't know.
The cemetery
That's a
is
separate
quote
animal.
unquote a redheaded stepchild. It needs attention.
Okay, see that I,
mean,
like I
that's-
said, except for that, but,
Right.
If the cemetery was 18 years old, you'd kick it out of the house. How's that?
or pray at least,
No,
okay.
no, I mean, what about my deputy? I've never asked him if he wanted to do extra stuff.
Who? Who's your
Sam,
deputy?
Sam.
Uncle Sam?
No. I mean, he's handy. He works as a carpenter. I've never asked him that. I mean, I've never gone down that road, but he could, I mean, he says my deputy, he could be assigned some,
Deputy, I did not know that,
yeah.
I didn't know that.
I don't use him very often. He's actually my what do you call him?
Rent-a-cop.
Yeah. He's the rental cop
Didn't I have, I mean, I knew you could have one.
for the the rentals. He looks after that. He's pretty good about it. So
Pretty good about
really, actually really good about it. I don't even know if he's ever turned any time in to get paid.
it. I don't think so.
So for 2 years now. He's kind of a free employee. I know. I mean, he'd be a good person. I could ask him. I don't know how much he'd be willing to do, but some of this stuff he'd be good
But
at.
I think I think we need to decide collectively what makes
Right.
sense. I mean, you're right, I think Sam, because he is pretty handy, he could do some of that stuff. We're gonna have, potentially 2 new trustees. What are their, what are they,
Well, and what are their skill sets?
yeah, and what are their
And
skills?
you're gonna have a new clerk.
What are they?
And yeah, we're gonna have. a
It's gonna be
new
2 or
clerk.
3 years before she's up to first, or he is.
He.
No, not he, not this he.
Right. So I guess this is the scenario I wanna avoid. And I sound like I'm picking on the clerk position, but I'm not, but that's the position that brought it up. You get a newly appointed clerk, and they're like, yep, I'm doing my statutory duties and that's it. Not that that would happen, but it could happen.
And I'm not gonna be in the office.
Well, or I'll be in the office, but I have enough to do just on my statutory duties. And all this other stuff, we're gonna have to figure out a different way to
See,
do
right
it.
now, her daily load is anywhere from 30 to 60 emails a day that they're answering or reading, and anywhere from 10 to 40 phone calls.
Now,
And
is that primarily related to the election?
No,
Okay.
probably have.
And I can tell you about some of those emails are for stuff that if you took that off of their plate, then they wouldn't obviously get those emails. And some of those emails got ignored.
Definitely, they have to. You haven't got that much time.
Well, no, but they shouldn't have been ignored.
I know.
So if
That means. you
if
gotta-
that office can't respond to mission critical emails because they have too much to do, then we need to take some of that load off because you end up getting bit. I mean,
Yeah.
I had to step in for the grant for the trust fund
Yep.
and for re-registering our SAM registration with the federal government because nobody in the clerk's office did it. Because they didn't either realize it was something that was important or didn't take the time to read it or whatever, whatever the reason was, but it's something that
They
has
didn't even
to.
know what it was.
Yeah, exactly. So it has to get done. You know what? Somebody else is in the treasurer's office that's not at Bradford, that doesn't have 20 years experience, they might not know either. And that's my point. We need to get some way to have some institutional continuity. And it's not just written down procedures, because you're never gonna cover everything, but you gotta have people that kind of are inquisitive and curious and show initiative on some of this stuff to be able to kind of manage through all of that, so.
Since Helen left now, we were using QuickBooks, QuickPro.
Mhm.
What are we on now?
Yes.
Oh, it's all BS.
Which is super good for what we use it for. We don't even begin to use it the
No,
way it should be used. We're getting closer, but it's a lot more entailed
yeah,
than QuickBooks. Now, I did QuickBooks. on
that
my
was,
own.
you did
Yeah.
QuickBooks, yeah.
No, it's built for idiots like me.
Yeah.
But that's how the progression has changed over the last 10 years. And if you throw that on another 10 years, the election thing is gonna be changed within 5 years. I wouldn't bet on it. Cause you got
Right.
clerks now leaving like fleas because of the election.
The thing, and again, I understand the statutory duties, but you can't, I wonder if some of this stuff got absorbed by the clerk, because I know when I talked to Shelley way back, when you guys were looking to replace her, when applications were coming in. Her comment to me was, during an election year, this is not a part-time job. It's a full-time job, and she said, but in non-election years,
The workload goes
the
down.
workload goes down significantly, and so I mean, it doesn't solve anything, but I'm wondering if that's how a lot of this stuff got absorbed. Is that,
Well, the more you
What's
do, the
on
more
the
you
head?
can do.
pardon me?
The more you do, the more you can do.
Well, I mean, credit to the clerk's office, I think they stepped up and absorbed it, at some point they absorbed this stuff, right, whether Dave asked them to do it or whatever. And I just think,
Well, the past
It's
clerks,
just-
Helen, they just did it.
yeah,
They just stepped up and said,
Well,
okay,
it's
I'll
a
do it.
lot easier then too.
Yeah, the election
You've been
wasn't,
30
Well, the
years,
election
right,
has
somebody
changed
that-
too.
the election
It's
You
changed
haven't had a
immensely.
clerk in here that's trained since Helen.
Well,
It
Helen
takes-
just had-
It takes years to train a
It
clerk.
takes years of experience and Helen had
It
years of
doesn't happen
experience.
overnight. You
No,
don't take somebody off. Nobody teaches you how to be a clerk. It's OJT, man.
I
Well,
would,
other than taking the class.
I would
getting
also
trained.
say procedures, manuals, they don't solve everything, but they are a great place to start. Cause then you can ask the questions. They don't even know what questions to ask in defense of.
Well, we have
Okay.
procedures, but you know, I don't know that there's 3 people that know what the procedures are.
well, the other thing is that whole thick book of
Yeah.
resolutions, yeah, So those should be reviewed at least once every other year, right? I mean, there should be a standing agenda item where we're gonna look at these three policies, review them, and if we don't need any changes, then we're good and we move on to the next year, but when we do that at Manistee at the city, we review those and go through them and, you know, make sure, some of those are out of date. I mean, they're just, they're
Way out of date.
when they're wordy and they're too long and they don't. But again, those are projects that are gonna take some time to do. I think you can address some of that with those, revisiting some of those, but,
Or just take little bites for a while until you get your feet on the ground.
so I don't know what the board's pleasure, I just bring it up because we've got this window
Got a small one.
where we could make a change to prevent something like that from occurring. And then you could assign additional duties if the party is agreeable to them after the fact and set the compensation at that time. You can't, and technically you can't. Somebody's doing these additional duties, but they didn't have an agreement to get paid, you can't pay them retroactively, but it's. I don't wanna overcomplicate this, cause it can get really
No, it's
messy
gonna
and
get really
sticky in a
complicated.
hurry, but I just bring it up because it was brought up and it could be a potential issue.
I could check with the bigger townships and find out if they even spell any of this out. I don't think they do either, but I'll check with Filer and check with
I talked with
Manistee.
one of my colleagues at the Treasurers Association meeting I was at last week, and they're from Allendale, their township, which is bigger. And they ended up doing that with their clerk and their supervisor. They split off and had a salary for their statutory duties and a salary, and it wasn't like 500, it was like, if you do all of these, then you get this.
Like
So it was-
another 8,000 or.
Yeah, whatever it was. He said that to me and I can't lay my hand on it right now. I'm not sure. I don't know if I accidentally deleted it. I'll find it
How
though.
big is Allendale? That's.
They're like 12,000 people. I mean, that's the thing. We are a complex, high value, small population township. So we're kind of an anomaly. But
You can't compare Onekama with anything. It's,
Well, it's comparable to Manistee Township in a way. Manistee Township has more parcels, I guess. But Filer's got. I don't know, it doesn't have
they've got
the
industry.
industry that we don't have, so it's different, it's just different.
And Filer's a charter township.
That's the difference.
We could put the Crystal Lake, I mean, you could compare us somewhat to Crystal because they have about the similar water frontage.
probably be pretty close. really.
Downtown water frontage, get the parcel count. I mean, cause that makes a huge difference on the clerk and treasurer's job is number of parcels. What are you dealing with for people and not only people, but tax parcels? How many bills you gotta put out? If you're putting out 500 bills and collecting from 500 or 1,000 is a lot different than what are we up to, Lyle? 29.
29, whatever. it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a difference. Dixon Township's a double township and there's 1,100 parcels. We don't even have 3/4 of a township because the rest of it's out in Lake Michigan. I think we have 2/3 of a full-size township. Really, if you take land mass and take the lake out of it, it's even less.
So other than like getting information from the survey from MTA, the concern I would have right now is with all the clerks dealing with the election right now. Are we gonna be able to get the kind of information
Oh,
that we
yeah.
might want from them? You think so?
Yeah, because I know all. They're all easy to get along with.
Until after election, because they are
Well,
swamped.
Yeah, but I bring apples in and I bribe them.
Here's another way of looking at it. I mean, you could leave the compensation right where it is. And just know that if somebody balks at something that had been traditionally done, or we have to realign because we've got a new people sitting around this table. You know, we may be in a position where we have to expend some more dollars to get the same stuff done.
And hire somebody else.
But maybe it's getting done more efficiently or more timely or whatever. That's the
You only
rate,
got about
the risk.
4 or 5 months and you gotta have a salary meeting in it.
Yeah, but you can't lower it.
No, we can't, we can bring it up.
What, I didn't even ask, what is,
I don't
I
think you
don't even know
go
what clerk and 26?
No.
27 for the clerk. about a little over
I saw the
$1,000.
resolutions, but I don't know,
No,
they're
that's-
getting 1,500 for the election. I'd have to
It was
listen.
2,000 more for the election, I believe. 2 years ago.
You're not gonna lower it, you're gonna raise it if
No,
anything.
right.
No,
So
no,
what I'm saying is you could leave it alone.
and not
until
touch
the
it, so,
salary adjustment comes in.
but you can't lower it.
No, you can't lower it, leave it, you're not gonna lower it.
Well,
Jack.
if you took, if Ed's point is, okay, they're overworked at that, they can't, and you're gonna take some of the duties away and hire someone else to do
We're
it.
gonna take some of the duties away to relieve the pressure, but the pressure is still there. It's not gonna go away. Just because you lose the election thing, that takes care of about,
That takes care of
3-4
about,
weeks.
that takes care of about 70% right now, see what I see, what these days, well, it has been all year, the election to me.
I can tell you without election, those girls are in there bumping their hump. Or doing
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Well, I see that, man, he's doing something every
I have
minute.
not seen the bottom of it yet.
No,
So the bottom line is, what we've been paying for the basket of things that are getting done may not be enough to get the same basket of things done in the future
I agree.
because of the complexity, change in staffing, expectations, all of that, and we just need to be prepared to potentially adjust the amount of money we're paying to get those services. And maybe you leave all this other stuff alone. I just bring it up as, that it's been brought up. We were gonna have a discussion of it. Cindy had asked them to record their duties, which they did, you know, when.
so then maybe you just wait and see how the election shakes out, see who actually is the clerk. Give that list of stuff, and the new clerk, whoever it is, goes, okay, fine, but I can't do all this. I can't get this all done for the compensation. We have a salary adjustment, you say, okay, well, if you're gonna do this, let's get a raise and let's figure this, or let's get you more help, one or the other.
Gives you a chance between the time of election and the salary adjustment. That you do every year.
Yeah.
Gives you a period there, 6 months or 4 months, whatever it is. And take a look at that to see if you really need to go up.
Go up or divert some of the duties so that, you know, that person isn't so overworked.
It's
and-
taken over all of Bean County. Thank God, cause I don't have any idea what they do. Some stuff comes across.
And some of that I can do, and we
Yeah.
can put some procedures in place in the software to make that flow better. Some of it I can't do,
Right,
because it's an incompatible duty.
Right.
So
because you have no check and balance
We've gotta-
between the two.
yeah, we've gotta talk through all that as to what that looks like. And
Okay.
maybe involve the
Cindy's
CPA
doing
more,
all
I
the
don't know,
minutes and
maybe.
stuff for meetings.
Well, and, I mean, the thing is, so we don't know who's gonna be elected. We don't know who the new clerk is, and we definitely don't know who the two trustees are gonna be, okay? And until you have the two trustees, you don't know what they may be willing to absorb or what skill set, because I mean, for me, I'm looking at this and saying, I can pick the 2 or 3 things I can pick up automatically that I've got experience with or whatever, but I think what you're expressing, it's like we either have to have, here's the amount of money for doing these things, if you're willing to, or hire manager, administrative, whatever we're gonna call it, and have another staff person. But
I really don't think throwing money at the problem's gonna solve it. I think more help can solve it.
well,
That's
that's
more
throwing
money.
money at it.
Yeah, you're still throwing money at it, but
Well, I don't.
You
like
got
that
more hours.
portion, but-
that's really what you need. Or else cut back on what your activities.
We can't really
Well,
cut back
you can't
on,
cut back on the statutory,
Well,
you can't change that.
we don't have to be aggressively developing parks and we can kind of sit back like everybody else does and say.
do nothing and do nothing.
Do nothing.
Oh, yeah, okay, I don't
But
think
it
that's the
sounds,
answer.
it sounds like I'm hearing a consensus to just kind of leave it as is
I
and see
think
where
so,
the chips
Ed.
fall after the election and to keep talking about this and coming up with something that
I
makes
think,
sense.
I think conversation is really important, that you don't let it drop. You know, you don't, this isn't letting that thing drop or pushing it down the street. But this discussion has to come up more often in more detail. That's just my personal. And I won't be here to enjoy it, so you guys have a good
You're not
time.
gonna come in the audience and attend?
I-
Yeah.
But
You know, just see, when does your term expire?
November 20th.
Tomorrow morning.
Okay, so you just don't be whatever. So we will need to appoint a temporary clerk out. It depends, I'm sorry, we won't know until after the election. Let's just leave it at that. Never mind. We may have to appoint somebody if in fact,
I think you need to hold that idea in your head that she may not take the oath. You might have to. You would hope that she doesn't. Are you gonna let her come back?
well,
She has to. If
Yeah.
she wins the election, you know, there's only one other way.
no,
We've
she'll,
gone through that.
she'll win the election. I have no doubt that she's gonna win the election, so.
Well, you might be,
Well, but to Dave's point, I mean, I think we're gonna have to temporarily appoint somebody if Amber does not take the
Correct.
oath of office, because you can't sit there and
I'll have no
start
deputy.
vetting out. No, but you also can't vet out, like, hi, send your resumes in.
see, under the assumption that I was under, because I was told that the deputy is the clerk's
Employee.
employee. It's not, it's the board.
It's a hybrid.
Yeah.
It's a hybrid. If you leave, the deputy leaves.
The deputies.
It doesn't say that, the board said.
Oh,
Well,
no.
no, it says it pretty
No.
clear. Yes.
You can keep that person as employee, but they're not the deputy.
They can't do the same duties. It can't, doesn't help.
Deputy treasurer.
Right.
And if you have a deputy clerk and an employee clerk is
No,
totally
believe me.
different.
Believe me, that's the only reason why I'm sitting in.
I know. So to get to that, so Amber wins the election and does not take the oath of office on the 20th. We have to have a,
You have to have a
Clerk.
Plan.
yeah, we have to have, be able to appoint a
Within
clerk.
45 days. Right?
No,
Yeah, but you won't have a
yeah,
deputy.
Oh.
That's the point.
So now all of a sudden,
Yeah, so your sentence might not quite be over.
that's what I'm trying to say.
That's-
There you go.
That's what I was trying to point out without saying it so
that's kind of
bluntly.
what we're preparing you.
Because then you're gonna have to put out, you're gonna have to ask for resumes.
You know, God.
No, then you're gonna have to ask for resumes and advertise for the position, and then by the time,
3 months.
no, it won't take 3
You
months.
can have all that ready to go in advance, in anticipation. It won't take 3 months.
Go.
But we can't go without.
You can't, well, no.
No, that's, I'm just bringing that up
You
to
can't
the,
afford to
no,
right now.
well, you can't. You can't run the office.
You can't even if you were to make somebody an employee, the employee can't do the clerk's duties.
Can't sign checks, can't do this, can't
Right.
sign that, can't do anything.
Can't-
So I mean,
No, it wouldn't work. I already been down that road. It
No, I
won't
know.
work. I'm just bringing that up that we
The
would appoint
supervisor
somebody.
Can also be, he can resign supervision and be the clerk.
No,
And
I don't think so.
supervisor Can be the
I
supervisor.
think that's a lousy idea. Then whatever, no.
Whatever.
I already have a job, maybe. I might not have a job after November either.
if you're running on, okay, somebody could, right?
Somebody could write it out.
I think this is a
Absolutely.
good start. I
Very
really do.
difficult thing to win a write-in.
Well, I know, but it could happen. Hey, the
It
village,
could fly too.
the village is gonna have 3 people as write-in candidates.
They don't have other people.
That is true, but well, the other is.
That's kind of.
Okay, can I just call this? Because
I
I,
think it's really good, Dave. Thank the new people. You're not new, but but it's kind of, this kind of divergent. This discussions are needed a long time ago.
I agree. You want this? You're gonna sign that one?
I signed it up.
Okay, thank you.
I just need to know if it's going paper like it is.
You know what, I'll
It's gonna
call.
be a- It's gonna be a $1,600.
We don't.
I don't think you put
You're
resolution.
saying, but is it because it's a road vacation, there might be a requirement, because we don't put our other resolutions in. that.
No, but I think because it is
The last one?
the road vacation, I don't know.
Ordinance.
The ordinance,
Oh, that was an ordinance.
yeah, totally different. This is a vacation order. I don't know. I'll ask
If-
Shelley.
Yeah, our MTA would know.
MTA will know, but they won't answer the phone. Well, today's Friday, isn't it? Friday.
Yeah, they're
Monday.
calling now, but.
Ask on Monday. Okay, I'll do that. That's fine.
Are we done?
We are done.